Welcome to the New Earth Invocation, where we examine the many creative ways we move into a brighter, more connected, and conscious future. My name is Ayesha Ophelia. I am your guide and friend, and today I have the great privilege to be sitting across from Sian Clifford, who is an actress, a friend, a writer, and you probably know her face because all the most amazing women in my life love the show, Fleabag. So yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for agreeing to kind of turn the tables. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, it's my absolute pleasure and honor, and thank you for involving me on this. I think this is a really, really special collection of storytellers and healers and world changers that you've gathered together. It's really special.
Yeah, it's all been so divine, including our connection and kind of how we know each other. But before we get into any of that, I want to invite us back into this place in our heart. And so if you can, close your eyes. We're just going to breathe and come home to ourselves. So let's just take 3 deep breaths in, and we'll kind of do it at our own pace. But take a big deep breath in through the belly and up, up, up. And when you're ready, just sigh it out. Let it be audible. Let's do 2 more. Deep breath in. Let it go and sigh it out. Let's do 1 more. Deep breath in. Sigh it out. And with your eyes still closed, just imagine that there is a magic elevator in your mind. And just see yourself getting into that elevator. Go ahead and press the down button. We're going to go down, 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 just a few floors right into the center of our heart. And you know you're arrived there because it feels like a still, warm, inviting, loving space. And from this space, we are connected to our deepest selves, our truth. We're connected to one another. And we're in the place where we can really have this conversation about who we are and who we need to become to create a new earth that's more loving and connected and just for all human beings and nature alike. So when you're ready, let's just flutter our eyes open and come back and just notice the shift. That's always so nice to do. It's like I'll have some nerves and be a little frenetic, and then I'll just settle and I'm like, oh, there I am. Like, oh, there it is. So feeling it.
Me too.
So I'll just want to tell a little story. So me and Sian have been connected through Instagram, and there's quite a few people that are like my regulars. Like we talk back and forth, and I feel this rapport start to build, and it was no different with us. And I didn't really realize what you were into. I just thought, oh, here's a cool person. We're just like kind of vibing back and forth about different things. And I was kind of late on the watching Fleabag thing, but I have a dear girlfriend, and like it's like in threes. Like I'll learn about a book, like The Woman Who Run with the Wolves. I learn about like something that's for me in threes. And so after the 3rd person invited me, I like sat down and vegged out with my friend and like fell in love, and didn't have a TV. So I was like, I have no way to finish this. Like I was just like feeling so incomplete with it. And a friend was like, oh, just log into my Hulu. And so I'm like watching it on my tiny little phone, and I pressed pause because I'm like, I gotta know what song this is. I press pause and I'm like trying to figure out what the song is. And on Hulu, I don't know if it's like this for you, but little icons pop up. And so that's like in my mind, it's like your icon and your face. And I was like, wait, what? This is so cool. So that's how we got connected. I think it's obviously deeper than that. There's like a sisterhood and a real resonance that we feel. And the more we tug on it, we're like, oh, we've got this in common and that in common. So that's just a little fun story. I'm actually going to turn the tables, give you the mic, and be in the hot seat for a little bit. So thank you for agreeing to have a conversation with me.
No, it's very exciting. And I think it's really important that people hear from you as part of this, I think, I mean, I have devoured hungrily everything that you've shared as long as I followed you, which must be probably 2 years now. I think you share things that are so, you're an artist to me, and everything you share is so beautiful and so connected, and yeah, it's really exciting to do this, and it's nerve-wracking for me. I've never like done an interview before this way round.
Yeah.
But it's also, there's a relief in it in some way to just yeah, and I want to amplify you and what you do, because I think what you share is incredibly pure and inspiring and so needed right now. And I think of you as like a compassionate provocateur.
I like that.
And every day you make me question something and make me reevaluate, and you create shifts in me. You've created fundamental shifts in me and my life. So really grateful for that, and to have you in my life as a friend. And I'm very excited to be talking to you today about the nature of beauty. And but we're going to kick off how you kick off with your guests, with a quick fire round. And I'm going to mix up the order you do this, because I've noticed that you do that so that people don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
So this is called the heart of the matter, and they're just quick fire questions. So and for anyone that's watching or listening, I've had some fun answering them myself for each of the interviews that I've been listening to, so do the same. Okay, so Ayesha, what's the last movie that you saw?
Last movie.
The last movie I saw was fill in the blank.
I actually think it was, oh man, last movie. I've been watching a lot of TV shows, so I watch Normal People and have been pretty obsessed with that. Can I like throw that in there?
You can throw that in there. I did the same earlier when I was answering the question. Fill in the blank. I believe in something more than anything.
Individuality.
Oh, yeah.
The creative paintbrush. Like we've all got
got
it.
to come back to that.
It's not all be alike.
I'm making a note because we need to come back to that.
Okay.
Favorite comfort food lately?
Watermelon.
Oh, delicious. Can't get good watermelon here, let me tell you. Fill in the blank. I want my legacy to be.
I want my legacy to be one where people felt they could be themselves and also like grow into potential. Maybe that's the best word. I want my legacy to be about human potential and who we really can become.
Okay, wow. Yeah, love it. Again, making little notes. Just for myself, not to share with anyone. One word to describe the potential of now.
Vast. Yeah, it's big. It's real big, people.
It's real big.
Yeah.
The last time I felt awe was
yesterday looking at the clouds. I don't know what it has been lately, but I've just been so enamored by just maybe that they're ever changing. They're always there, but there's always like some little thing that I can look up and be like, that looks like da-da-da, or, you know, yeah, clouds.
Yeah, we'll return to that because I know you have a deep, deep love and connection to the clouds. What else? Fill in the blank. Truth is.
Truth is. Man, this is hard. Truth is vital. And there's not a lot of truth tellers, and it's something that I kind of enjoy, almost like get off on, because it seems such in short supply. And it's like, oh, for instance, this short story, it's so welcome to me. Like, I go to bar every day and it's a very physical thing. And we're like looking at each other, like, you know, we're taking in each other. We're like, it's very intimate. And I walked in and this older woman was like, I thought she was going to say, she was like, nice butt. You've really been working. And I was like, oh, yeah, thank you. You know, like, I just didn't expect her to be so honest, because I'm like checking out everyone's butts too, you know, and it just felt like, oh, that was like such a truthful moment. I felt really like connected to her and her honesty then.
Leading on from that, have you recognized that that's something that is showing up more since this year began in terms of how you communicate with people, whether they're strangers or friends?
For sure. I actually was thinking about, there's like 3 layers to just the rapid growth that I've experienced in my ability to like say my truth and not hold it in, especially some of the more like controversial bits. And, you know, obviously it's COVID happened, and this, I've felt this coming. This wasn't all just because of that, but there was a natural disaster here. And I felt like, wow, it does something to the psyche. It like pulls, for me, it's like pulled up this truth. It pulls up a lot of other stuff that you have to work around too. But I've really felt this deep connection to my truth that feels like it was a long time coming. And also it has been a catalyst because of some of these like harder, darker moments that we found ourselves in collectively, and probably on individual levels. We're all dealing with a similar story.
Yeah,
for
big
sure.
time. Now I know that this is something you ask at the end, but I'm not sure if it's the end of the whole. Maybe I'm going to save this question till the very end of our conversation. Here we go. Now you wanted to focus on beauty today.
Mm-hmm.
And could you talk a little bit about why that is? Why is beauty speaking to you the loudest right now?
Yeah. Well, about 2 weeks ago, when all of this came in, so this has happened really quick. Like, you know, maybe the idea was seeded a few years ago because I had like a template set up and was able just to like turn it around pretty quickly. But I knew that I wanted to ask people who all had like a different facet of the diamond to share about like how we seed the new earth. And I knew that like I had to be in the hot seat too. So I started to think about, what do I even want to talk about? Like, there's so many things I'm interested in, and, you know, where does my focus go? And I pulled cards, but not until I was headed out to hike, and it was like early in the morning. It was like, what am I doing hiking when I should be working? But I just felt really called to go be in nature. And when I was on the way there, it was like the voice of nature started talking to me, and she was like,
Second, my doorbell has just gone. I'm
okay.
so sorry. There we go. Divine intervention. Don't know what that is.
Ooh, I wonder how I can hold space. I was going to try to hum or sing, but I'll just eye gaze with you.
So sorry. It's literal nourishment for my puppy.
Oh, good.
Dude. There we go. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Please. That was, yeah.
Yeah, so I feel this very feminine, like ancient voice speaking to me, and she basically is like, you know, we're bickering, and I gave you the most beautiful earth that you could have created heaven on earth with. And it was also just kind of like, thank you for seeing the awe. Thank you for the way that you look at the trees and the clouds and how much beauty there is. I often feel like just a little girl who would be content, like chasing a butterfly through the, you know, whatever. And obviously I'm a grown-ass woman also, and I have, you know, that, but like, I really felt this beauty, this like return to beauty, you know. And then later on, I went and picked a card, and it was literally all about the beauty of the earth and how much is given to us. And so the beauty way, as my friend calls it, is really just a way of seeing life. And so there is awe about the natural world, but there's also the ability to see the beauty amidst the pain. So, you know, they say the crack is where the light gets in. And when that happens, obviously there's a lot of stuff that comes up, but there's also a lot of beauty that we can grab onto. And that's really like the journey back to the heart, is through picking up these beautiful pieces in the midst of like all the other rubble. And so there's a part of me that's like, oh, this is so frivolous. Like, how do I really make this land, you know? And then I started to think about people who have really inspired me. And it's like the voice of John O'Donoghue, which is this Irish poet. He really speaks so eloquently and beautifully about beauty and how it's a connection to our spiritual selves. And then it was like, oh, Rumi and Hafiz and like Rilke and like all of these like really great minds that I look up to really valued beauty. And like beauty to me is indistinguishable between love. It's like, if we really can tap into how much is there for us, we can find our way. Yeah.
And I want to just focus on the natural world for a moment, because that's something that really speaks to me very strongly, and is a relationship that I know personally I've needed to cultivate a much deeper connection with for a really long time. And because of COVID, I've been able to, and even I've gotten a new dog recently, and I now have to leave my house every single day. And can you talk to me a little bit about your relationship with the clouds? Because I do think it's really magical and beautiful, and there is something wonderfully childlike about it, which I think is an important aspect of sustaining and potentially resurrecting our relationship with beauty, you know, that curious nature that we had as children. So could you talk to me a little bit about how that began and how it manifests and what it gifts you, what it looks like, what it feels like when you stare at the clouds?
Well, I think I might have to shush my dog. Hey, little girl, come. She wants to bark. Yeah, she listens.
She starts my muster chorus.
I think we all can probably relate to like looking into the sky and really wondering like why we're here, what our purpose is, and how often do we actually get into wonderment? There's so much about life that is scheduled and happens in our mind. And, as beautiful as this operating system is, it has its limitations. And so for me, it's like, if I really want to experience timelessness, if I really want to experience truth, I have to get into that space of wonderment. And so I don't even know when it began. It's just lately. And honestly, it's connected to my use of sacred plant cannabis. It's really like, as soon as I like merge with that consciousness, and even when I don't now, it's like I look into the sky and I'm like, wow, like I'm just in awe that these shapeshifters exist, and they're sometimes not even there and it's clear, and sometimes they come through. But really on a deeper level, what it's giving me is like a peace from like the constant chatter of the mind, and it's like a deeper connection to wonder and beauty and awe. And there is something sacred about that. There is something healing about that. There's something that it's necessary. It's necessary to like put down a lot of the things that we know and really pick up this childlike wonder and, and look at the sky. And so for me, the natural world is my window, my portal to that. And quite frankly, it's like something that I trust far more than any man-made story. So it's something that it's a place where I can go and know my truth and know myself and know what's really, what really my job is.
Yeah, I've found that I've wanted to write a piece for a really long time about that. I think we all need periods of time in nature. And I mean like sustained periods. I don't just mean an afternoon. I mean like time away if you can get it, or even, I don't know, just solitary time in nature to observe.
Yeah.
I think there is so much power in observing just the evolution of nature. And because I was going to ask you, what is the nature of beauty? But is it nature itself? And is that simplicity and that return to natural living and,
Yeah, I feel like it's the origin point for me. And I wanted to like kind of tiptoe into the answer that I know you're going to ask me at the end. And I think a big part of the new earth is that we have this reverence and respect, and we're living closer to the land, whatever that means for us. It, it doesn't necessarily mean that overnight cities don't exist. It's not really about that. It's about viewing ourselves as, what does Clarissa Pinkola Estes say? Is that only pick a lover who views you as like this living, breathing creature who gets to change and morph with the seasons. And so nature is like our gateway back to our truest selves. And if we don't have that, it's so easy to feel like you don't know who you are, what your purpose is. There's so many answers that live in the natural world. And that's just really what I believe, and every tradition that I really find value in has this same sort of tone, this message about it. So, it's not just like, I don't know, I see these articles and it's like, earthing is good for you. And it's like, duh, like, I'm glad that people are starting to understand that we're so linked and that we actually are a part of this nature, and that we can, one of my favorite, thing, I do this hashtag dream bigger, and it's often on some really weird creature in nature that just is funky looking, that's wild, that's crazy. And so many adaptations from nature have come because nature knew what it needed, and it seeded itself with that knowledge, and we have the same ability to do that. And so if we start to trust in this process that's happening out there in here, as above so below, I think we can really start to move the needle on transformation, and that's so needed right now.
Yeah, and I really want to talk to you about that, about human evolution or soul evolution of the collective, but also of the individual, and how, and this came up in another one of the interviews for this, but I wanted to talk about it. It was, I know I want to pronounce her name correctly. Is it Vui?
Yeah, UV.
UV. She talked about this longing that humans have, like innately in our consciousness, to evolve, and that it stopped.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I can have conversations sometimes with people who think that we're at the sort of height of our humanity because of our technological advancements. Yeah. And I don't resonate with that. I feel like we the further we go down that road, the more disconnected we're becoming from ourselves. But even in that technological advancement, I can sort of feel that is edging towards fulfilling its true purpose right now. Yeah. Social media, which we all have a very mixed relationship with, and some people aren't on it, some people are, some people have a really conflicted participation with it, but I feel like the sharing and coming together of people is how it's finding its true soul purpose and why it was created. And so I feel that even though we are pushing against what I think we are being told we need to move towards, that even in that space, it's bringing us back, that we can't evade this evolution any longer. And so I wanted to ask you where you feel we may be stalled in terms of evolution, and how we can use nature to sort of power and propel us forward from this moment.
Yeah. I will say the way that I view life and myself is like, it's all a living, breathing thing. And so I loved what the point that you punctuated about that, despite maybe what the internet was created for, it has its own sort of consciousness, and what it's really done is connect us. And for me, it's like, it's connected us. It's made things that we need to see in order to free our minds more visible. There's not so much stuff that can be done in hiding. Now people have video phones, and we're getting to witness horrific things and beautiful things at the same time. But what it's really giving us is this deeper connection, this accountability. So to me, it is this living, breathing thing. And I feel like, there's many aspects of self, but we also have a higher self, I believe. And I believe that this higher self is helping us to know how to evolve. And we may be doing things on an unconscious level that are really bringing about the massive shifts that we need in order to really proceed and know ourselves and know our potential for what it really is. And so to answer your first question, which was, refresh my memory on that question.
Oh
It
God, I'm
was,
the worst for this.
oh, where are we stalled? Where are we stalled?
Yeah.
Where are we stalled? You know, I don't know
And when
exactly.
did that happen? Why do you think we got lost along the way? Why have we taken such a massive diversion?
Okay,
From
so from stories ripped from my own page, my own life, there's been vast swaths of time where I felt like, fuck, I am so lost. Maybe I'm stalling. Maybe I'm just walking in circles. Why is my life not progressing? What, you know, I've asked these questions often of myself, and I've often felt lost. And a lot of that was because my path felt so different than the ones that I saw sort of out there. And so in that time, I've been really able to reframe the feeling of being lost, because it's so much for a purpose. And maybe we did wander in the wilderness for so long because we needed to understand certain things. And I feel like also the way evolution works is it's sort of like some people are seeding and they're blooming, and these bigger truths are coming out and people are accepting it. And then the next generation continues to do it. So, you know, this has been happening for millennia. So I think there is some wisdom to being lost to become found. But I also believe in, like, okay, so we're evolving, right? And we're supposed to be like pulling that polarity in towards the center. And I feel like there is this middle path really of integration. That's what it looks like on a super practical level. It's like all of these ideas that we have, when we really start to put them in motion, then being lost really isn't being lost. You know, there's a faith that is there that what is happening is not all that's happening. There's something underneath the surface that wants to be birthed and wants to be born. And so for me, I've really had to cultivate this ultimate trust in what's happening. There's a reason for it, and there's a collective calling for certain things to happen. And yeah, just having trust in that has made it easier to feel lost and be lost, because it's inevitable. We're going to feel like that. And so, you know, maybe we did veer way off the path and we got way off. And, you know, I think that the universe might have been like, nope, all right, I'm intervening. You do have free will, but enough is enough. Like, let's get together. Let's come to this point. And that's where I feel like where we are. So yes, we've been lost. You know, we've let technology become our God in a certain way. We've let, you know, progress take us into cutting down big, beautiful trees without even worrying that we're connected to them and we breathe through them. You know, we've gotten way out of balance, but I think that more and more people are waking up to our connection to the earth and, you know, sort of our way forward, even if it feels like, you know, is this right? Am I going in the right direction? So I hope that kind of answered your question.
Yeah, and it feels to me, and tell me if this speaks to you as well, but that the speed at which we are evolving, and I feel like this sort of began this. I feel like the stirrings of this began in kind of 2012, and now the rapidity of the speed at which things are revealing themselves, truths are revealing themselves, the ugliness and the beauty are so fast. We almost can't comprehend them. And actually that to me is why restoration and rest itself is so powerful right now in order to assimilate all those shifts and that information. I wanted to ask you, I want to speak about the beauty in pain and in grief. And I'd love you to share, if you feel comfortable, something, a time in your life where that may have been deeply painful, maybe a moment of grief that you have been able to find the beauty in, just for people that are very new to this idea, just to sort of guide them into what that might look like and feel like, and yeah, talk to me about the transformative power of beauty.
Yes, I could definitely speak to that. And I want to come back to what you said eventually, because it almost is like an arrow. It gets pulled back. You know, we've been pulled back, we've been held back. And then eventually the archer strikes and we have to like move into the future. So anyway, that's something that I really relate to. And then as far as grief, you know, it's so interesting. We all come into life with all of these different archetypes. We come in as a race, you know, as a person, as a gender. Where am I going with this? Okay, Scorpio, that's where I wanted to land. So there has been this comfortability with some of the darker, more hard things in life. It doesn't mean that they've been easy for me, but they have been something that I have been willing to look at maybe earlier than some people. And so for me, really the last 5 years of my life has been this giant crucible because, you know, my mom passed away. I left a corporate job and I knew that I needed to leave a marriage. And so there were so many things compounded in one that it sidelined me. I really had to take time. I pulled back from this life and this trajectory that I had been really working very hard towards. You know, I was very like, I'm still a go-getter, but it was like strong. And so I felt really sidelined. My mom was my dearest friend, and you know, I had felt prepared for it because we knew it was coming. She had been getting increasingly sick, but the beautiful thing I think about grief and what we're going through now is it like creates a vacuum. So it's like, it's almost so shocking that it happens that it pushes a lot of crud out of the way. And that's what it was like for me, you know, like I wouldn't even be here talking to you. I'd probably be in some totally different life if my mom hadn't. I feel like we had an agreement. There were so many things about it that felt oddly serendipitous. Like for instance, so she was dealing with complications from heart disease, and it really made me passionate about like the beauty of the heart and what the heart really is here for. And you know, that's a total tangent, but you know, as she was dealing with this, I was sort of like preparing myself. I was sitting with her and being like, all right, what does it feel like to be with your mom? What's that energy like? For, you know, I believe that energy goes on. And so anyway, so this huge vacuum happened, and it was like, all right, what's going to emerge in this space that this grief has created? And that's what's happening now with us. And that's why I think the potential is so vast, because we've cleared out a lot of stuff in a really rapid way. And that's what it was like when my mom passed, and you know, all of these things were happening. And really what emerged in that space was like space for my true self to really come out, and my purpose. You know, me and my dad had a conversation, and we talked about what it's like to not know your why. And you can feel like a rudderless ship. And I think that we just talked about how that's a part of it. You're lost until that purpose really comes in. And for some of us, it's seated at different times. You know, we're really supposed to walk in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights, you know, like Jesus or whatever. We're really supposed to like go through our dark night of the soul. And so that's what it was like for me. I really had to face a lot of my own demons. I had to face a lot of things, but now I feel like I can be of comfort to people, especially people who are dealing with harder emotions, death and dying. There seems to be no place for that in our society. And really, it's such a powerful place. And recently a quote that I loved was like, something as universal as death has to be a blessing. So even like a chapter coming to a close is a blessing if we can really frame it and look at it for what it is. And so the gift of my grief was like, wow, okay, I feel like I know my purpose now. I feel like I can move in a different way. I feel like more of me can emerge. And I feel like that, you know, it's like, quote unquote, the ultimate sacrifice, you know, depending on what you believe, you know, call it creator, call it God, whatever story, whatever mythos really feels like yours. There's always this example of like these ultimate sacrifices that are made so we can like become who we really are. And you know, that's what I feel about grief and some of these big, darker emotions that we try to stuff down. There's so much power in them. There's so much juice. And so, but we have to be willing to like kind of get in the pit and roll around with them, you know, and that's exactly what I did.
Can I ask what that looks like? Because I think a lot of people, you know, I talk about that a lot in my conscious living practices about sitting with our feelings.
Yeah.
And what does that look like for you?
Well, there's so many ways. And lately, I've done it through the mind, which we all do. And I really have I've returned to practices that are more like somatic and have to do with nature. So for me, a lot of reclaiming of and being willing to look at that was done through plant medicine. And I know for some people that sounds like the ultimate hell. And but the thing about the ultimate hell is once you walk through it, the only thing waiting for you is more of heaven and more of your truth. And so, I'm like kind of perpetuated towards these big, and not like big catharsis that you can't integrate, because I really take time between working with master plants, but that has like liberated so much of my truth and really let me be able to, in a safe environment, because it has to be that, there has to be someone who's guiding you and working with you. And every time I've worked with a master plant in ceremony, I've just like, it's like I just been wrung out. It's like, all right, I'm just going to wring out all of this old mess, and you're lighter. Like I literally think that our DNA is going through this process of becoming more like crystalline, more lighter. Like the potential of who we are and who we can be, to me, is mirrored in nature. And so if you're in awe of like how a butterfly can go from this crawling caterpillar and like go down to goo and then fly away into the sky, I believe we have the same potential in our DNA. There's like, what is it, like we see like such a small percentage of the actual range of vision, and we can't even hear some stuff animals can hear. It's like, and a lot of our DNA is dormant. I believe that it's like being activated, and the way through is literally by being able to sit with it. And so master plants, I've really gotten into my body and done some somatic stuff. So like breath work, acupuncture, using the body knows how to die, the body knows how to fuck, the body knows how to have babies, the body knows, like the body can really guide you through. And I've really realized that like if I can breathe deeply through this discomfort, I know that sounds so like, slap me if you want to, but it's hard. But
I'm totally with you.
In childbirth, it's like the breath is such a tool to like liberate you from your pain. And so my favorite teachers, all of their practices, their holistic practices are abundant, free, and often just use the wisdom of the body. So all my favorite things are that, I've sat at a counselor's office. My dad is a psychologist, so I've done it that way. I believe that there's a way that's more in tune with nature. And for me, it's like plants and the wisdom of the body.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think I always say that our bodies and our emotional world are languages we've forgotten we're fluent in.
Yeah.
And there is a deep remembering that we need to all go through. And a mutual friend of ours, Lydia Jardura, talks a lot about sort of handing over the responsibility of our bodies to doctors rather than referring to ourselves. And oftentimes, I mean, this has happened to me in my own life, where I've gone to a doctor and I've explained to them how I feel.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't align with the way that suddenly the Western medicine.
They have like, they've got like charts and graphs, and it's just like, that's not.
You don't fit into the boxes, and there's your body is communicating. Pain for me is it's literally a pain signal.
Yeah.
It's trying to tell you something, and so if you numb it, then you're literally saying, I'm not going to listen to you, and I'm going to let someone else who can't feel. I mean, I know it's impossible I think that's why it's impossible actually to articulate those things. Because they're not, if you try and put them into human language, they collapse.
It's so true.
And that's why you've got to feel into them. And it feels so alien when you start doing this work. But eventually, it's like, even with having this new dog, I've only had this puppy for 3 weeks, but already we are developing a language. Yeah. And I just, I think how I do get frustrated with her sometimes, but I mustn't, because actually, I've taken her away from a dog world and into a human world, and I'm expecting her to adapt and know exactly what I mean. Of course not. We have to find a different language that's somewhere in between human and dog, there's other.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
it's in the feeling space.
It is. And you know, one of my favorite things is the dream time. And in the dream time, it's like
I was
often,
going to ask you about this. Yes.
yeah, it's like often we know what we know and we're not really even talking, you know, your lips aren't moving, but there is a vibration. And to me, that's like, these are the building blocks of even this reality when we look at it. And even science is like, collaborating this conversation that we're having, you know, it's like where it's vibration and it's energy and it's movement and it really is feeling. So if people are watching and they're like, oh, it's sappy, it's like, it's not really emotion, it's just this deep understanding of what's there. If you're an empath, you can walk into a room and not even have heard the conversation, but have a feeling in your body. Like, what does my gut feel like? What does my heart feel like? And for me, this is like a conversation about personal sovereignty. And that's another thing. It's like the literal basis of the Girlfriend Manifesto. Anything I do is about personal sovereignty. It's not about, hey, come follow me and end up on my path. It's like, hey, learn how to listen to your own self and end up where you're going to go. Because we talked about this individuality. It's like we're all here for a different reason. And if people see like you or me and they're like, well, that's my path. Well, it may be, it may not be, you know, and the only way to really know what that is to get into the feeling space and to reclaim some of your sovereignty at the doctor's office. Insist, like, you know, they're going to try to tell you this and this. And that's been a big thing that's happened to women who look like me when they're trying to give birth. They're saying, hey, this thing's going on, and people haven't listened. And then it's been catastrophic. And so, you know, it's a real call to everyone in the different professions, you know, about coming home to that sovereignty and also, you know, listening to people as they're, especially in a medical sense, because I watched my mom really take the advice of someone who wasn't living in her body. And, you know, I ultimately think that's what cut her life a little bit shorter than it necessarily had to be. So,
Yeah. A call for diverse voices in every aspect of our cultures, I think. I did want to, I was so fascinated when you talked about the beauty of the heart. I think we have to return to that. And could you talk a little more about what that means to you, your relationship with your heart, how it serves you?
Someone told me that it's cancer season, and the part of the body that cancer governs is the breasts, and under the breasts live the heart. And so watching my mom go through what she went through, you know, growing up, my Bible wasn't, well, my Bible was the Bible because I grew up Christian, but eventually my Bible became Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life. And that was like a big entry point for me into spirituality, because she was already making the connection between sustained emotions that we feel in parts of the body that it affects. And so, you know, in Chinese medicine, this is sort of well known. And even like when you go get an ulcer, there's like certain aspects of like Western medicine that really, they're like, yeah, you've been worrying too much, that's why you have an ulcer. But for some reason, the connection between other parts isn't as out in the public. And so watching my mom go through what she went through, I thought, wow, this really is about suppressing her grief and then not coming into the fullness of her heart. And I was like, there's an epidemic of broken hearts, and we're just like pushing it down and we're pushing it down, and we're hoping that, you know, something shifts without really being willing to feel it. And so for me, it's like, if I can be vulnerable and open in this space, then I can give people also a similar space to walk into and be able to like kind of tiptoe into their feeling space. And sometimes when you've repressed a lot in the heart to go there, it could feel like I'm going to just be in a ball of tears for a year. Like, I can't deal with this, you know, but it kind of wreaks havoc on the body if we're not willing to trust and get into the wisdom and the bottomlessness of this space in our bodies and in our psyches, and, you know, how we're created. And so for me, I've just been like everything, you know, Society of Wild Hearts, it really is about this like heartfelt message. And I think vulnerability is a big key. Like when I think of vulnerability, my heart feels softer, it feels more open, you know, I want to like put my chest back. And I think that's a thing that's really been missing with people, you know, on social media and all kinds of stuff. We have this like perfection reel, and the vulnerability is missing. And to me, that's like such a heartfelt piece of healing that we all need. And yeah, that's why the whole, the message in the beginning, like getting into that elevator and getting deep into the truth of um, this bottomless, energetic and physical space in the body.
Um, I want to ask a couple of really practical questions because I really love giving people, you know, and I know you do too, like a tool to go away with. But I want to ask you, there's a couple of things I want to ask you. I want to ask um, how can we cultivate a relationship with beauty? Like, where would you tell people to start? I mean, I think, you know, in terms of you wanting to see the beauty of the individual, I'm the same, because whenever I'm asked in interviews, you know, what's your routine with this or this or that, I never ever respond. I always like find a way around the answer, because what works for me works for me.
Yeah.
And that's it, full stop. And so, but how, where would you, I mean, of course, tell people to start with their intuition, but what would you?
Well, here's like something super practical. Okay, so
Yeah.
wherever you are in a room, maybe you can see outside like I can. Just take a minute, and this is a what's the word for this? This is another somatic tool. This helps you rest and figure out where you are in time and space. So you just like, you locate your body, you locate yourself, and then just look around the room and maybe notice something you haven't. Have you ever driven? Like for me, it's like I often try to notice beauty that I haven't seen. And sometimes I'll be like, that house was tucked away behind that tree for 7 years. And I'm like, it's like the coolest little cottage. Like, you know, open yourself to more beauty. Open yourself to that there's beauty in every moment. So like, even if it's a hard moment, even if you could be anywhere and do this, but just look around and notice something that strikes you as beautiful, and take a moment with it. Take a beat and like look at it. Take it in, integrate it. I think that these practices can seem maybe a little bit frivolous to the mind, but what it really is doing, it's like rewiring your mind to look for beauty, to look for beauty in the midst of everything. You know, that's why seeing like a flower that rose up through the cracks is so inspirational, because you're like, it's literally a concrete jungle. What's this beautiful flower deciding to plant itself here and blossom? So if we want to have beauty blossom in our hearts, we have to begin to really have a sustained relationship with it and begin to notice it and begin to cultivate it. And that really is the beauty way. Like the beauty way is going to lead you and open you up to whatever vista is like really going to do it for you. But once you start to notice, and everything's relationship to me, it's like don't rush in, like have respect, like build it slowly. Those are the kind of relationships that really are going to last. So yeah, just begin to notice beauty right where you are.
Beautiful. What else there was something else really practical that I wanted to ask you.
We're good at this, like we're doing good.
I know that you love divination tools.
Yes.
And I just wanted to ask you if you would, how can you use beauty or nature as a divination tool?
I just got a book on this and it blew my mind, because the funny thing is like once I started to really realize that what divination has given me isn't necessarily future telling, but it's like, oh, your intuition is freaking spot on. Like you start to sharpen that relationship, you're like, wow, I really can know what's right for me. And so that's what divination tools have been for me. And so I started noticing, like, I went through this phase where I would be like the next divination thing, I'd be like, I think I can read the bottom of people's shoes. Like how they walk is going to tell me something. Or like, I can listen to your voicemail and divinate. Like if you're working on a goal and I listen to your voicemail, I could give you a new voicemail to like bring that in. And so I think like all of life, and this is like Robert Moss's teaching, it's like the living oracle. So like not only are these, like people are like, how do these cards, this is just paper, like what's this card even about? And when I'm reading people or I'm working with people, I'm like, all right, explain to me how Wi-Fi or the electricity works. And they're like, I don't even think I know. And my brother's an electrician, and what do they call them? They call them journeymen, which I just like, that does it for me. I'm like, ooh, you're journeying and like this is a spiritual technology. We don't even necessarily need to know where it comes from, but we have learned how to harness it. And so for me, oracle tools are the same way. And the living oracle is simply just looking at life as like, wow, why was that song playing when I walked by that person? I'd been thinking about this, or why is this little note on the ground? It's like everything can be an oracle. The clouds, you can sit down and work with the clouds. It just sounds so silly, but it really, that's the quality of magic that my life has taken on once I started to really view life as an oracle. And one of my favorite oracles now is like music. So I'll just be like, I need to know about this crush, like I need to know about it. So I'll go and pick a random song, and then I'll like put it on random on Spotify. And I promise you the songs that come by will give you a clue about this person. And sometimes it's like, move on. And sometimes it's like, it's different, And so I really have, that's a fun thing for me. And that's, to me, it's beauty. It's like noticing that life really wants to play with you, and that you can cultivate this type of connection to the mystery. Because if, like this Jim Carrey, I think, had a quote recently that I shared, and it's like, why aren't more people curious about like why we're even here? We've like, to me, that's always been such a big question that I've had my whole life. And I would just ask my parents over and over and over and over again, and was looking for some magical answer, and they pretty much just like redirected me to a textbook, and I was like, not good enough. I'm going to figure this out on my own. And so, life can be a living oracle, and we can view it as such, and we can work with it as such, but really what it's leading you back to is like it's mirroring your connection to that, like your ability to know what's true for you. So yeah.
Can you give me or give us an example of something that beauty has taught you in like the last few days? What's something it's gifted you? Something that stood out to you and spoke to you?
I've said this before, and a lot of other minds have said this before, but I really believe that heaven's on earth. We don't necessarily know what happens after death, although, I have a friend that's a near-death survivor. I've like experienced some things in plant medicine that give me a clue about the beauty that awaits after this. But what beauty has really given me in the last couple days is just like, it's here and it's now. You really can tap into this timelessness. Have you ever just like seen a bird or seen something majestic, and you've like followed it, and you're like, oh, where did time go? Like, what is time? Like there is this timelessness that we can experience through beauty. And so for me, heaven is an idea that a lot of traditions have toyed with and played with. What does that look like? Is it something you experience later? But for me, like beauty is an entrance into that heaven here, instead of waiting for some trumpets to blow, that it may not be like that, like I don't know for sure, but I do know for sure that beauty is an entrance back into the journey of the heart. It's an entrance to our innate connection with nature. To me, it's like the way forward.
Beautiful. Yeah. That in and of itself is beautiful. Yeah, I have a little joke to myself. So the clock behind me stopped weeks ago, but I'm not going to put a new battery in because it reminds me that time is a human construct.
My friends like that too. I like that.
So all the like video stuff I've done from home, everyone thinks it's the same time, but it's nowhere near that time. Anyway, now what was I going to ask you about? What can beauty teach us, or how can it kind of initiate us into being more present and intuitive? How do we harness the power of beauty, basically, to be
when I think of it, if I'm using your word, when I think of an initiation, it's a ritual. There's certain steps that you take. There's certain reverence that you have. How can it initiate us? Well, yeah, I think if you decide to want to go the beauty way, There is an initiation, there's a ritual, there's things that you do every day. But like I said, it really is this, this invitation or this mirror, at least it has been for me. It's like, if I go pick a card and I'm reading it and it all feels like, oh, I kind of knew this, like, wow, you know, there is some beauty and magnetism that's happening. Out of 90 cards, the card that I picked after I had that conversation with the earth about beauty was a card that had beauty in the title. You know, it's like, for me, it's like something that's brought me back home to trusting myself, trusting my intuition. And intuition, it often doesn't look like a linear path. It's going to say, hey, take that leap over there. And you're really going to have to trust in this invisible, trust in yourself in order to really continue to follow the path. Like, you know, something you reiterated from my first interview was about, you know, if the bee doesn't come into its purpose, like we miss out on honey, nectar. You know, bees are pollinators. Like, what if bees were like, I don't think I want to like be a bee, I'm gonna, you know, like, you're telling me to go over there, that doesn't make sense, you know. And so intuition isn't linear. It's not something that you can be in your rational mind and uncover. You know, it is asking you to go into, again, this feeling state. But really, everything is just returning you to your own divinity. It's returning you to your own truth. It's returning you to, yeah, what I believe to be heaven on earth. You know, we're made in the image of whatever cool creator did this. Like, we're made in that image, and we have that ability. So, yeah, I
Yeah,
believe.
something else that jumped out and again, another one of your interviews, and it may be the same one, about beauty in the mundane.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think especially at this moment in time with lockdown, like returning to much more simple
yeah.
way of being, like learning to make bread,
Mhm.
or you know, like stuff like that, or starting to grow stuff in a couple of pots on your
Exactly.
windowsill.
And even
um,
behind you, like the light is dancing in a really beautiful way on your piano. It's like there are all these mundane moments that we can tap into and really experience a lot of beauty. But again, you have to like train your eye to want to dance with those shadows or dance with that light, you know, and they're always there.
and actually that makes me want to speak to, again, that this idea, I think part of the lie that we've been sold by the media is about, um, like like aesthetic, like what is aesthetically beautiful.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think that that manifests in nature as much as it does in you know, the ideal body, or whatever that means. And I'm referring back to this interview, and I'm reminded that you talked about, you know, adventure and what that looks like. And, you know, it doesn't need to look like, I don't know, an infinity pool
yeah. In
in
Thailand,
Thailand.
with your lover.
Like, no, it's right here. It's right
Yeah,
here. It's the light glistening on the piano. It's going for a walk in the park. Like, it's right here. And I think that, yeah, I certainly, you know, I've traveled so much in the last 12 months, and I was supposed to be traveling throughout this entire period that we've not been able to, and I haven't. And it's sort of, I don't know, I don't know how you feel about this, but I've certainly felt in the last few weeks that I don't know that I will ever go on a holiday
mm,
to somewhere else
yeah,
anymore. I don't know. Definitely my relationship with that has shifted, and I think it is to do with my relationship to what matters most, and my relationship to what's beautiful, because what's beautiful is, it's right here.
yeah, yeah.
Um, you wrote the most incredible, Ayesha sent out this incredible questionnaire to everyone who was participating in the New Earth Invocation. And you asked a question: what is your unique perspective on what we can do and who we can become now to invoke a radical shift on the planet? And what you wrote is so beautiful, and I'm not expecting you to say it back to me verbatim right now, but I would love you to talk about that.
I think I probably have a different answer now because
Great.
I feel like I've been noticing a lot of birds soaring really high, like really high above things. And for me, it was like the creator was trying to show me that there is this perspective that's like, you know, every perspective is needed. The people that are on the ground, like on the ground's going to look different than in the trees, you know? And what I really wanted to bring together was people who can like sustain that larger vision so we can have something to shoot for while we're here. And so for me, like what the lighthouse is, what that like big vision is, has to do with awareness. And so to me, this whole conversation, the card I picked yesterday was awareness, and it's kind of a buzzword in spirituality. So it may be hard to like ground it into a real life practice, but awareness is simply like sitting and embodying and being with yourself. And, you know, we have to like shut off all of these distractions in order to hear ourselves. And the way that awareness is birthed, you know, is through these quiet moments of solitude where we can know ourselves as more than just like our job title or, you know, what we do for a living or, you know, all of these things that we get to be. There's a deeper truth with awareness. And so that's what I want to give people a ticket back into, is like their own awareness. But it can be done in so many ways that are beautiful and are magical. And, you know, yes, we have to do hard work. We have to have hard conversations, but like, how can we like arm ourselves with protection and truth and integrity and intuition before we go out and do those things? And so for me, it's like those practices can be joyful, they can be whatever, but that higher perspective for me is awareness. I don't remember what I said particularly, but that's what's occurring.
Read it out. It's so beautiful. Okay.
I'm gonna hold on. Just one little. Wasn't sure what time this was going to be, and so I'm going to like sign a lease for a new house. And can we say 1:30? Okay, she'll be fine. Like she lives right next to the house, so it's fine.
Amazing. Okay, so in response to what is your unique perspective on what we can do and who we can become now to invoke a radical shift on the planet, you said, beauty is the beginning and the end of our journey as human souls. In times of chaos, we can turn away from our very nature, instead embracing stoic realism, not realizing we are cutting ourselves off from our ability to transform in the face of trouble. Beauty is inherent in the natural world. It shows us every day how to see rightly. It shows us what to do when we are faced with adversity or challenge. Furthermore, we must cultivate the opening of our true spiritual eyes in order to perceive and see through the illusions that are pervasive at this time.
That wrote me. I remember that. I don't even, I did write that.
But there is this, you know, nature is cyclical.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what you said about death, because there is no place for death in our culture. We can't look at it. We can't talk about it. I don't think people are grieving properly because they generally don't allow themselves to. And I've had a couple of friends lose their parents in recent years. And it's so interesting to, you know, witness and hold space for them and how they deal with it so differently. And one of them, I would say, went really, really deep, just allowed themselves to crack open. And I always think of like a breakdown more of like the shedding of a layer.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're collapsing. It's more like the outer shell, you know, it is like the shedding of a snakeskin. And then, you know, the other end of the spectrum, I've had a friend who's not allowed themselves to go into that space. And I feel like eventually they will be forced to, because grief will take hold of you in the same way that that brilliant post that you put up, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, about, you know, if you keep ignoring the signs that the universe is showing up for you, it will just come and smack you around the face with its titty, is what you said.
And I quote, the universe is titty. Yes.
Yeah. And I do feel like, you know, and I think it's the hero's journey, where they talk about, you know, that basically that we can have breakthroughs joyfully, but it's 5% of the time.
Yeah.
Most of us need to go through that a painful transformation. That's certainly I do, and that might be to do with ancestrally what we've learned
Yeah.
is the only way to achieve or uncover or discover.
Yeah. And then like, the way you personalize pain has a lot to do with it, because it's a part of the journey. We all have to go through it, but how we feel about the pain really can cause more pain, or it can like, it won't totally alleviate it, but you know, it is a mindset. So that's important
I feel like, and this goes for emotional or physical pain, the more in resistance you are to it, the more it will hurt.
Yeah, that's
Because
true.
you literally
Yeah,
create more energy around that thing. The more you resist going into the feeling, the more of a blockage you can create, the more you actually power you give it.
yeah,
And I the reason I keep going back to that is because I think, you know, historically in recent times with a lot of spiritual work, they avoid this area of shadow.
yeah,
And I think it's so much a part of beauty, and that's what we see in nature is the creation, but also the destruction.
exactly.
And that, you know, the more we can allow ourselves to go into those darker spaces, I think really for most of us that's where the deep transformation
Yeah,
is.
I would totally agree.
I'm going to bring you to this big, beautiful final question. Unless it breeds more, let's see. What does the new Earth look like to you?
It's definitely one where we're living closer to nature. I mean, ideally, if we're doing like a major upgrade, you know, we have tree friends, we can see trees, there's a bit less concrete. Um, but yeah, there's something about that natural world that envelops us, because I feel like the truth lives there. So in the new earth, we are living more near the land. We're realizing that we're inextricably linked to that. You know, we have the same potential as that. And really, we are that. So our mindset has really shifted. And for me, it's like if you're on a spiritual path, there will come a point where you can't continue walking the path if the earth is being degraded or people are being hurt. Then the spiritual path becomes that. And so I think that's where we are. But you know, as we continue to walk and create heaven on earth, we're connected to each other. We're like the mycelium in the forest who, you know, if someone's in trouble or if trees are in trouble, we redirect our energy and resources to there. It's not even a second thought. It's just who we are and what we do. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what it, you know, I have my own vision of what that could look like, but I think the truth that I want to seed is really one of like we talked about, awareness, and seeing our connection to the natural world and sort of letting nature take its course. It's like so much is, you know, so much of the spiritual journey we think is like in our mind, or we can think our way through it, but there is this like this beauty that wants to be drawn out of us, that will take its course, that will lead us, and that we can trust. You know, it's not all just on my own volition or power. It's like connecting our power with this invisible power and moving in that way.
Can I ask you what it feels like to you?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like, fuck, I'm finally myself. Like I get to do this. You know, it feels so natural. Like I think I heard Jay-Z say something once, and he was like, you know, the thing that comes so natural to you is really like the key. And sometimes it can be so ignored because we think we have to struggle or whatever. But it feels like coming home. It feels like whatever that feels like for you, unconditional love, coming home, you know, this like warmth. I think that's how you know.
Well, that's why that question, what is your unique perspective, is so powerful, because I think, you know, and I was answering this question, I didn't send it to you, but I was writing it earlier, and for me it's discipline is the easiest thing for me to show up to, and it's something I've been told my whole life, you're so disciplined, you've got so much willpower, but to me there is no effort.
Yeah.
To me it's very easy, but I also have a way of giving myself permission to show up in like baby steps. And that is the way that I have created radical shifts in my life. So I, if I wanted to start a new running practice, I give myself what's called a laughable goal.
Nice.
So it has to be something that's so small that it makes me laugh.
Yeah.
So it's got to be like, okay, I'm going to run for 30 seconds a day, 3 times a week, and even less if that feels like too much for you, right? So you start so small that you just think, well, that's a joke. Now the discipline is cultivated in sticking to that.
Yeah, totally.
So you don't do more. That is what cultivates the strength to go move on to the next level. It cultivates your passion and hunger to move on to the next level, and it cultivates discipline and a connection to the practice of it. And that's where the joy of the journey is, and not the goal-oriented culture that we've been sold. And I just totally, agree with you on everything about, but that's where the flow is. And we can make life so hard for ourselves by taking a path that's like where you do need to cut things down, and you're getting like cut, your face is cut by thorns and whatever, and like literally just to your left there's this like lovely little man-made path next to a stream, there's birds and there's deer, and it's dreamy. I do feel like I want to ask you one more thing. Oh yeah, I did want to ask you, is there what I don't know if I should ask, but just aside from beauty, or in maybe in as a complement to beauty, is there anything else that is speaking to you right now? I would love you to articulate about beauty and showing up with spiritual activism right now, like practical tools, because I feel personally that you speak on this subject so powerfully and beautifully. And what's the most beautiful way, I don't know, that you would like to see people showing up right now for themselves and others?
Yeah, we touched a little bit, like one of the first questions, or in the 7 little heart of the matter questions, we spoke a little bit about individuality, and we touched on it again when we talked about if the bee hadn't become who the bee was going to be. And I think in spiritual activism, especially at this time, it can be so easy to like jump on a bandwagon that's already been created. I don't really find anything wrong with that, but to truly be an individual and to know where you want to serve and how you want to lead, well, you have to be in touch with that. And I think that's so important, to just take a beat and say, what is for me? How do I, what you said in the beginning was brilliant. Like, where is my voice the most amplified? Like, what is a natural role that I can step into? I think at this time, our mind tries to make it so hard. And a real principle that I've been adopting is the Occam's razor, which is like this: the best answer is the most simple answer and direct answer. Because I can play mind games forever, but really what that is like it's a part of you being in resistance to actually like becoming and moving. And so I loved your laughable goals thing. I was just laughing and thinking like, okay, if I was a runner, I could say I'm gonna buy, like, my laughable goal is like, I'll just buy tennis shoes and I'll put them by my bed, like, I love that so much. I want to like think about that and write about that. But I think in addition to beauty is individuality, because we're like, if we all don't step into our purpose or for what that is and for how we want to lead now, then the world does suffer in some way. And it doesn't have to be like, your activism could be like, I want to bake like healthy treats for people who are marching, or I want to really like sing with my family. When I sing, I feel really good. Like, you know, your activism is going to look different. And when I think about a choir, like when I've been in plant medicine ceremony, especially, I'm like, wow, it literally takes every voice. Like every voice is what makes this chorus. If I don't like agree to the human terms of like looking at my bullshit and looking at my darkness, and I don't come into my truth, then, you know, I think we've had time to do it, maybe a millennia, but it really is like the time is now. Like it's just a great time to renegotiate and be like, you know, there was a part of me that I was suppressing, and I really want to let my individuality shine like this. And my activism looks like this. It's like, instead of saying like, this is your activism, ask yourself what your activism looks like, and really be and do that and embody that, and have the discipline. That's such a big part. It's like all of these fluffy ideas that we love, you know, we want to post about them all day, but like they don't come to life until we interact with them. So we got to get up off our seat. We got to get into that place that is going to feel uncomfortable. And and in that place, you know, magic is born, change is born, transformation is born.
Yeah, I mean, I had a conversation with a friend of mine earlier about assimilating all this information that we're sharing. And it's really important that we keep sharing and we keep learning and unlearning and doing all of those very practical and earthbound things. But like, as you know, I've had this relentless schedule. So what I did for my laughable goal is I just said, okay, I'm going to read a page of this book every single day. So I'm reading Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde right now. And I know that I will show up to that. I know I will do it. I know I will read a page of that book every single day, because it's ridiculous. I'm like, of course I can read a page of that book every day. Yeah. And what that does is it just gives you purpose.
Yeah.
It gives you, I feel like without those anchors, whatever they are for you as an individual, we're at sea. Yeah. And it's okay to get lost at sea, but if you know, you've always got to know that you can come back to that internal compass.
For sure.
And anchor yourself in beauty and love.
Yeah.
My love, well, this has been amazing. You inspire me so much, and my head is buzzing. I could ask like 50 million more questions, but I'll wait till we're offline.
Talk all day. I appreciate you. I appreciate your thoughtful questions and your willingness to show up in your activism. And together we can make a difference. We can make a change.
Yeah. And take the small steps. If you can't take massive steps right now, just for me, it really is about finding the most powerful way for you as an individual to serve right now. I can't remember who posted it. It might have been Rebecca Cargill. It might have been Austin Channing. I don't know who posted it, but it was a brilliant thing about, you know, you can't be all of the things. So pick your lane. Exactly. And you know, find that flow, find where it feels easy and loving. Mm-hmm. And that's where you will be of most power.
I love that. That's a good note to.
Yes, yeah. Okay. I think you should wrap this up, because this is your baby.
Well, I mean, it's the last day, so they get this on Friday. So if you're watching this on Friday, you are invited to our town hall meeting. It's going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There's going to be some new voices you haven't heard from, but really it's just a forum to like ask questions and voice concerns and really know how to like get your feet on the ground and moving. That's really what it's about at this time. So we've described a million beautiful ways that can happen. And I just want to thank everyone who's like been a part of this, including you, have really been people who are like ready to do the work and are hungry and inspired and, you know, having all the feels, but are still showing up. So just like kudos to all of you. And I look forward to seeing what seeds we plant and what blooms in its space.
Me too.